Okay, so one of the macromolecules that we're going to talk about are proteins. So proteins have a lot of different functions within the body. One of the main functions is going to serve as an enzyme, which is a biological catalyst. And so what these do is they help to speed up reactions within the body. So anytime there is a chemical reaction that's taking place, for example, when you eat lunch, you are going to produce enzymes in your mouth, in your saliva, and that's going to help to break down your food. You also have enzymes in the stomach that are going to help to break down your food, and all enzymes are going to be proteins. Proteins are going to also help to regulate when we look at, again, eating food and having to monitor your blood glucose levels and your insulin, then proteins are going to help to do that. Proteins are helpful for repair, transport when we need to get things into and out of the cell, and then they're also important for cell communication. So proteins are also known as the workhorses of the cell. So the main set of instructions are going to come from DNA. So DNA has all of the instructions to make you you. You have brown eyes because your DNA says have brown eyes. I have curly hair because my DNA says I have curly hair. But the actual brown, the pigment, is going to be a result of the protein. So the reason that I have curly hair is going to be the way the follicle's made, and that's going to be based on the proteins. So proteins are going to be the workhorses of the cell. So one thing to notice is that function is determined by the structure. So when we have a protein, and we will do more with this with enzymes in the future, but when you have a protein, it's going to need to be folded in a certain position in order to function correctly. And so we say that structure equals function. And so really it's just based on how it's folded, based on the shape, is going to determine the type of function that it's going to have. Now we've mentioned that macromolecules are going to be made up of monomers. And so remember, these are just the single units, the building units. So a monomer of a protein is called an amino acid. And so here we are looking, what's written in black, at an amino acid. We start with our carbon. We have it connected to another carbon. And on this end, we have this carboxyl group. So this carbon is double bonded to an oxygen. And then we have this OH group, this hydroxyl group here. So this is called carboxyl acid. Then on the other side of the carbon, we have an amine group. So this is where your amino acid is going to come from. And so your amine group is going to have nitrogen attached to some hydrogens. So this carbon is going to be attached to an H, a hydrogen, and then it's also attached to what we refer to as an R group. Now this R group doesn't stand for R, it's going to stand for a variety of different groups that it could be attached to. So you're not going to actually have an R, you're going to have other elements that are attached to. So when we look at amino acids, all the amino acids are going to match for the amine group, the main carbon, the carboxyl group. Where they're going to differ is with the R group. So R groups differ among, this says amino acids at the bottom. I'll flip that so you can see. So R groups differ among the amino acids. So when we look at amino acids, they're all going to be the same, except for this R group's going to be different. And that's what's going to give it different properties. So when we go to build our proteins, we're going to use different amino acids based on the properties that we have. So we take those amino acids and we join them to form a polymer. So a polymer are just many monomers put together. So poly is going to mean many. So when we put all these building blocks together, we form a polymer, and a polymer of a protein is called a polypeptide. So the peptide comes from the bond that is between the amino acids. So here I have 4 monomers of amino acids. They've all been put together, so this forms your polymer. So this would be your polypeptide. And what's between, what's holding these amino acids together is called a peptide bond. So a polypeptide bond is because you have many peptide bonds.